Do you hear me now? Okay, so let me know if the sound is gonna drop again, because sometimes it happens. I don't know why in the recent Manjaro update sometimes my sound just disappears. I don't know what causes it, so I have to restart the Pulse audio. And if I restart Pulse audio, I have also to restart OBS. Okay, so I think a lot of people actually missed a lot of things that I was talking about in the stream. So I was trying to explain that I've created this small project for deducting stock in multi-stock inventory functionality of Magento that allows to not overrun orders, and I decided it makes sense just to optimize and rebuild a little bit some parts of the system on a stream, just to get some knowledge to other people on the way how I work with Rust in order to solve some of the Magento issues. So in general, as I said before, like there is some messages. Those messages are commands and events. So commands is something that is received into the service, and events is something that the service produces back. So there's commands like update quantities that allows you to update source items within MSI module. Then there's a reserve order, cancel order, and process order. So there's only 3 mutation operations related to the stock, because yeah, there is nothing else that happens usually in a customer store. In my case, maybe in future I will grow this list of operations, but right now this is more than enough in my opinion. So what happens on a reserve order? Reserve order is something that happens when you place an order in Magento, so you need to reserve some quantity in stock. Then you have the cancel order operation. This one speaks for itself. If you place an order and you decided not to pay for it, so you will receive a cancellation notice, and this cancellation notice then also will be processed by this microservice. And then there is a process order. This is something that is kind of an intermediate state for the system, specifically for the customer I was running the service on. The customer is having an operation like between the time when stock information gets exported into the third-party system and between the place order time there is a gap, so the third-party system doesn't know about specific quantity that has been reserved on Magento side and might send some update notifications to Magento. So there was a need to have somehow to notify that this intermediate state is already known in a third party. So for this purpose we have this process order that notifies, hey, this specific order with these amounts that were reserved before already known by third-party system, so the source item gets mutated with the shipped quantity field, and then the shipped quantity field gets reset to 0 if the source update comes afterwards. So this is kind of a smart way to work with the stock quantities in order not to overrun them. There's a bunch of stuff related to serialization and deserialization, so there is different operations happening here. There is a bunch of tests that try to deserialize the JSON structures, and actually any structures that can create maps in Rust. So in future it should be possible to do a lot of stuff. Okay, let's go into the code of the worker. So I wanted to change something in the worker. I have right now a lot of operations happening, and here is, for instance, this finish operation, and there is this process operation. So the process operation should be called within a loop. It tries to reduce number of currently running tasks, and it groups them together into one single subtask, and then it increases number of running tasks. It's an atomic unsigned integer, so it's kind of thread safe. Then it tries to collect all the tasks that needs to be executed later on. So there's a bunch of interesting stuff happening. Here's some tests for it. So for instance, here it tells like we have the scheduler, and the scheduler is receiving an asynchronous function as an argument, and expects that the asynchronous function just does some work behind the scenes, and it just schedules it to happen in the background, and then I just verify that the work actually happened. So nothing too extraordinary with this code base. So here we have some stuff here. For instance, it exports worker error into the string. Yeah, this is just sanity check test in order to make sure that the error text is represented somehow. So what did I want to do? I actually wanted to create a new test case. Why is this screen flickering happening? I thought I already disabled this functionality in NVIDIA drivers, but still I see that when I do stuff like that, there is some flickering happening. Okay. Hope it won't bother you too much. Otherwise, yeah, I can't do anything about it. I stream and work on Linux, so sometimes things happen that are a little bit weird. Let's see. Async function. What I wanted to test that I have some kind of a way to check if I can do some async work. So we have a new visitor, Togglebit. Hi there, how are you doing? And here I'm gonna test for receiver to modify status as soon as I press finish. So the finish, it's an idea that I should shut down the whole work, so I need to have a way to check from outside, hey, if I decided to finish something, or I actually don't need to do it. I think no. I don't need. Receiver is only going to be working on one operation, so it's not that big of a deal. Okay, let's see. Then let's go back then to storage. I think I have a couple of failing tests here. So let's run all the tests in the storage itself. So there's a bunch of operations happening here. It tells us that there's two tests. It creates slice to check item existence, and it prevents adding new items when slice check is active. Okay, so there's two failing tests, and these two failing tests, I need to make them green. Let's go into this one. It creates slice to check item existence. So here we have some in memory source item storage, and oh, I remember where I stopped here. So I wanted to create the existing service, but I wanted to have a way to be able to share storage in a proper way. But there was some issues with I think there was some issues with the multiple threads and sharing the references in Rust. So I was doing some interesting operations in order to make sure, you know, like I don't copy everything over. So source item storage existence. Why? Why do I do it like this? Oh, because I was unable to pass it over. So this is probably what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into this one. Okay, so here I already implemented the source key as a key in the hash map, and then when I add an item to the storage, I create this one. Okay, so it seems like this should work well. Yeah, because this one is already in arc. I think I already modified it, so it should be fine. I finally can implement it. So I was doing some refactoring, creating a new storage, and now I think I can just go in here and implement basically those tests here. So for instance, source item existence, I don't need anymore to clone the data. I can just create a read guard, right, await, and here this one is going to be rv log read guard item in here, and the lifetime specifier. Oh yeah, this is something very important, to bound the lifetime of this structure to the basic struct that I'm using as a return value from a service. So service item storage existence service. Okay, great. And here let's see if it's gonna pass. Okay, it complains that cannot figure the appropriate lifetime. The data with an anonymous lifetime is captured here and is required to live as long as static here. Okay, so what do I need to do here? I basically need to create a lifetime for this function, and I need to bind the lifetime here, I think, right? Does it work? Not really. Can help indicate. Okay. Do I care here? Not really, because I'm not gonna take any reference. Okay, so now it compiles at least. Okay, that's a great sign, because before I was unable to pass through this step. So now it just tells me that a method exists, is not implemented, and that's true because I don't do any checks here. So I can check for a key value, right? Contains key, probably. Yeah, it's the best one. So then I can go and say, hey, source key from pair of SKU and source. Does it gonna work? Let's see. At least it compiles, and when it compiles, it's already a good sign. Hey! And both of my tests are now green. So, what I was unable to do before is now fixed. I'm gonna tell a little bit of a story what I had a problem here with. So, before there was an issue with the arguments that I was passing to the exists function here, and this exist function was receiving a reference to string slice as an argument, and the hash map itself also was containing a string slice. So now I changed the string slice to a specific type. So now SKU has own type called SKU, and this SKU behind of it is just a type that wraps an atomic reference counter of the string slice. So instead of copying over the string values all over the application, I just create a smart pointer to the string slice that I received, let's say from server-body, from a socket, or from a database, and I'm just turning it as a slice behind the smart pointer. And when I just want to pass it around, I just clone a pointer instead of cloning the whole string. So this is much more faster and more efficient. Okay, let's go. Let's go and do a bunch of other stuff. So, okay. Can we do something else as well from the storage? I think the storage is more than enough for us to create something simple. So right now, like I had this take and take for quantity and put and so on. Those things are not needed anymore because I'm having this default storage, and this default storage has some special methods that I think I still didn't implement. Yeah, so there's this schedule update and add reservation. So the schedule update is supposed to be some kind of a vector that I can verify by some value. So let's see. Updates is kind of a hash set of source keys. As I'm not sure I really need to have this hash set, and I was thinking about it, and I'm just have no idea how I'm gonna implement it right now. So so there is two things, like there is an updates and reservations. Maybe I can just move the stuff to a different storage. I don't want to have here any locking data structures. I just want to use some kind of a channel to communicate with a third-party system. And let's see. What if we just create it here as some kind of fake service or something like that, that should take this data at a later stage. So, or maybe no, I think it's okay. I think it's okay. The only thing I don't like here is arc and rvlog, but I think we cannot do anything about it. And generally I think there's going to be only one writer, so it shouldn't be that big of a problem from point of view of scalability. And we're not going to work with millions of concurrent updates anyway. So great. Let's implement our test case for the schedule update method. Let's switch a little bit stuff here. We don't care a lot about the structure here of the directory itself. What I'm caring about here is actually my tests. So I wanna collapse all of them. Can I do somehow this over here? Code. Okay, folding. So collapse recursively. Okay, great. Now I can see the previous tests separately. So I'm gonna create a new test case. And what I'm gonna do here, I think I'm gonna write a test case that will schedule an update. Right. So I will do it something like that, so it schedules and updates, and here I'm gonna create storage itself, storage, source item storage. Do I want to specify items like that, or I just want to create a default one, or just a default one? Then I'm gonna execute few additions to the storage. So I want to create a list of items. So I'm gonna add here. So there's gonna be an item with SKU 10 from the source 1. We can actually just shortcut it to this value. It will have quantity of 20. It should be enough. Okay, and here we're also gonna specify something like this one, and here this one is gonna be from 2. So SKU20 is from the source 2 and SKU10 from the source 1. And then we're gonna await an update because it needs to supply those values, right? So let's see, is our test running, or there's some compiler? Oh yeah, there is, because I forgot a comma. I was thinking why it doesn't highlight it. Then we're gonna execute an update, and we're gonna say, hey, we are actually just updated an item with specific SKU. So let's say we specify an SKU 10, and we specify an SKU, and we specify source 1. Right, and yeah, let's add the third one just for the measure, and the third one is going to be SKU10 and the second storage. And let's also schedule an update of the second one. With the value 2. So we are going to change something here. So what did I plan with this method actually? So the schedule update, it's an async function, so I need to await on it, right? So I need to await that it actually finishes, and then when I schedule an update, what should happen here, it actually needs to verify that something actually has been done to the item, right? Or maybe I actually don't even need to do it, because what I think there is something like this source item data. When you create it and when you modify it somehow, like when you receive this item, you can modify it already with some value. So what if instead of doing that one, we actually record an update? So we don't really need to like calling this method from third party. We already have a storage that can track changes in the source items. And yeah, when we are doing it, we can save a lot of boilerplate code that we are gonna actually write. So what I'm gonna call it instead, I'm gonna call, oh, my AirPods just fall down, but that's not a big problem. So what I can do here, I can specify that it tracks updates in the item. Okay, so I've added some items, so they exist in memory, and then I'm gonna do something like that. So I'm gonna grab this item with SKU 10 and source 1, and what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna say, hey, I'm just gonna set status, let's say, to 1. Oh, I actually don't have this item yet, so I need to wait on it. And then what I need to do, I need to say, hey, I wanna change something in this item. And what? Get or insert? No, I don't want to do anything with it, so I want to have an item. Oh yeah, because I need to unwrap it as well. So I need to unwrap it because it's an option. And then I wanna do an update here with I cannot do, alright, because it actually should consume a data. Or what I can create actually a method update, and here it will actually update, let's say, the quantity and the status. Okay, that should be it, I think. Right, so I need to go back into the original storage itself, and I need to go back to the items, and I need to create a couple of tests. So I need to create a test here, and I need to say, hey, the source item, when I update something in it, it should update the internals of the item, definitely. So how do I properly do it without breaking other tests? I think I need just to verify it through a method call or something, right? Let's say it updates item status and quantity, right? So I'm gonna create a new source item, SKU10, source 1, let's say quantity 100. Let's assign the source item like that. Let's also specify it's gonna be mutable. We're gonna try to update the value for quantity. So the quantity we're gonna set to the value of 23, and the status we're gonna set to the value of 0. And then I'm gonna assert equals, and I'm gonna specify that the source item quantity, and I can actually verify internal fields here, and the source item status were updated to 23 and 0. So this is how my test looks like, right? So let's see if this option actually works. So let's run it, test itself. I think it won't work because there is no yet no method found for the source item with such a name. Unfortunately, in IntelliJ IDEA there is no way to create it from tests. So first I need to collapse stuff recursively here in order to not go again here later on. Let's remove redundant lines, and here we have our methods in the item. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna just run pub. I'm just gonna create a method update with mutable self. I think that's correct, yeah. And it's gonna return back basically nothing. Yeah, it should return nothing. And then self, yeah, let's mark it as unimplemented yet, and let's pass in as a parameter quantity as i32 and status as e32, because I think that's what the internal type is. Yeah, quantity is i32 and status is e32, the same as in the database. Now I'm gonna go in and run a test again, see it fail, because it should complain about unimplemented panic. Yeah, great. So now I'm just gonna make it green, right? So let's see. Quantity, self status, and status. So we just assign a value, and this should be more than enough. Let's see if it passes the test. Yep, the test is green. So now it also, I need to do another test. I need to verify that it sets shipped quantity to 0 when item is updated. So this is important because if we receive an update from third-party system, we need to reset the in-between status of shipped items to 0, because we know that third-party system already received the shipped quantity. We already have an item level, so we just want to make sure that we don't undersell products. So in this case, like we have this value, let's also create here with shipped quantity of, let's say, 10. And after updating, we need to make sure that the shipped quantity of this item is equal to 0, right? So here it is. This is basically the whole test. Let's keep just status like that, and let's say we had shipped quantity of 10. Let's make it realistic value like 90, so we know that third-party system received, and it tries to update us with the actual available quantity to sell. And then yeah, we just say, hey, our shipped quantity is gonna be equal to 0 after it, because before we had 10, now it should be 0. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I need to run all of the tests. It sends shipped quantity to, I don't like 0 in a method name. Let's write the word 0 first of all, and let's rerun it. Okay, great. Now what do we have here? Assertion failed. Left 0. Right. Left 10. Right 0. So it tells us that, hey, the test fails because you didn't modify the shipped quantity. So self shipped quantity equals to 0, and that's basically should be it. Yeah, great. So that should be okay. And now what can we do? So another thing that we want to check that, yeah, when we do something like that, like reserve quantity and so on, it also modifies somehow a state. However, as far as I know, the tests here yeah, I see what the problem is here. So what I want to do, I also want to implement manually this partial equality check for this source item, because the partial equality shouldn't affect another properties that I'm gonna create, and I'm gonna create on it a property called modifications, and it's actually gonna be an enum of the modification state, and we're gonna specify here source item modification, and it's actually gonna be completely internal type that we're not gonna share with outside world. And it's gonna have none, it's gonna have source item, it's gonna have source item aggregate, and it's gonna have both. So basically there's 4 different states of the modification, and we're gonna specify the source item modification here, and here we're gonna specify source okay, is it just modifications? Yeah, modifications should be source item modification none. So this is the current state. Okay. We're not gonna test for this value anywhere, but we're gonna make sure that it doesn't affect the other operations. So I don't want to. I basically don't want to refactor a bunch of code I don't need to touch. So I'm gonna implement the partial equality trait for source item, and I'm gonna remove it from derive statement because the derive statement is something that actually checks for it. I'm gonna implement a member for equality, so I'm gonna check that self. Basically what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say yeah, self SKU equals to other SKU, right? And bunch of other statements. I think I can keep it like that. Maybe a bunch of data needs to be checked against each other, then source, and then source, and then quantity, and then quantity, and then status, right? Status and status, and then reserved quantity and reserved quantity, and also the last one. The last one is going to be the shipped quantity. And here as well, shipped quantity. And yeah, I think that's all. And what it complains about. Oh yeah, remove semicolon. Let's see if any of the tests in source item break. Cannot be formatted using blah blah blah. Okay, we need also to derive and debug for this type. Oh yeah, sure. Modifications is source item modification none. Okay, the tests are passing, so seems like everything is fine. So what I'm gonna test now, I'm gonna create another test, and I'm gonna test that it calls update source method on a service which is modified, right? Is it correct or not? Yeah, let's see. What do I have in my mode here? So I have here this persistence service, and here it has multiple things here. So it has a source item and source item aggregate, and it also has this reservation method. So this is different things that's gonna be called. Okay. I think I will need to create some kind of an in-memory storage for this one in order to be able to test it out. So I think I'm gonna implement it here. Struct fake persistence service is gonna contain okay, I think I messed up here in persistence. Yeah, E instead of A. Okay, great. So this fake persistence service, each of the structs that will contain updates probably, and the updates are going to be an enum of fake persistence update. And this fake persistence update is going to have two states. It's going to have state source item, SKU source I32 its quantity and status is U32, or source item aggregate, right? Also SKU source, and then it should be, I think both of them I32, right? So this is two states. Here we're gonna have updates. Update is gonna be a vector of this fake persistence service update, and this fake persistence service update is gonna have an implementation, as it will have internally a method called flush of self. So we're gonna check what was inside of it, and it's gonna return us back a vector of this fake persistence updates. We're gonna make sure that we kind of can compare them, right? So we're gonna derive it from partial quality trait, and we're gonna derive it from debug, so we can basically inspect it as well. I'm gonna create a couple of helper methods for my test as well. One is gonna be called item, SKU source. Oh, basically I can use here a nice thing called string literal because I'm gonna use this method only in test, and in test I don't want to create source and SKU by hand. Quantity I32, status U32, it's gonna return self. So basically just gonna be self source item SKU from SKU source from source, and quantity yeah, probably just quantity and status. So this is it, and another one is going to be aggregate. I don't remember what kind of in order should be over there. Let's see. Where is it? Storage mode. So it should be first shipped quantity and then reserved quantity. Okay, great. And then we're gonna have an aggregate with shipped quantity first. And reserved quantity second, also I02. And the types should be source item aggregate. Okay, so two helper methods to construct our enums are ready, and here we're basically just gonna return self updates, and new is just gonna return back self with updates and empty vector. Great. Then we're gonna implement a persistence service trait for fake persistence service, right? And here, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I completely forgot it's immutable. So what I need here then, I need actually to change it a little bit. I need to change the definition here from vector into arc, and it should be behind RV log, I think. And it should be actually behind not the Tokyo RV log, but behind a different one. Or probably mutex is even better, right? So we're gonna import it from std standard library. Arc mutex vector fake persistence update, and here I think we can just I think it should be something like lock unwrap and okay. Can we do something immutable then? Yeah. Not really. Let's see. Let's look it up in documentation. Let's see, Rust mutex to owned value. Okay. And wrap. Okay. Muter. What? This is crazy. Okay. Arc. Okay, try and wrap, unwrap, into inner, unwrap. So basically this is it. Yeah. Unwrap, Okay, should be good. And here we just need to wrap this one into arc of new mutex. Okay, great. So this one we should just mark as unreachable, and this one we just need to get self updates lock. And wrap. And inside of it we need to push a value with fake persistence update source item of SKU, source, quantity, and status. That's basically it. And with aggregate it should be the same. The only thing that it should be source item aggregate. So now our test source is available. Let's see, let's storage. Fake persistent store service new. Okay, now we're gonna have a source item, and this source item is gonna be source item new with SKU10 source 1, and you know what, I'm just gonna test first that it does not report updates if item is unmodified, right? So let's start with a simple test case. And what we're gonna do, we're just gonna call a method here on the source item, and we're gonna say, hey, we're gonna create a report method on the source item that's gonna take as an argument a persistent service. So we're gonna specify the storage here, and then we're gonna verify that the storage flash equals to an empty vector, so there's no updates happened. And now it should fail to compile because I don't have this report method. Oh, okay, there is a different issue. I cannot find value quantity. Oh yeah, because it's shipped quantity and reserved quantity. Okay, let's see. Okay, now it tells me that report method is missing. Sure, it's missing because I didn't create it. So I'm gonna create it here. I'm gonna create pub create function report, and I think it's gonna be a mutable self. All right, and here we're gonna receive an argument to storage, and a storage should be a trade implementation. So we're gonna specify it as a template argument, and we specify persistent service. Should here like that, persistent service, and you can specify it as a reference of persistent service, right? Okay. So this probably should work. How do I specify this? A reference to it? Can I do something like that? I think so. So I'm gonna say that, hey, I'm just gonna specify here something that's gonna happen, but right now I think I'm not gonna do anything with it. I'm just gonna try to compile it and see if it compiles. Expected font struct. Consider borrowing. Yeah, that's probably a good idea, but I also need to make this one mutable. Okay. Report. So I probably can specify something like that. Oh, not this one. This one is a reference, and this one is a mutable variable. So that's a problem also. And now it's compiling, right? So now it's compiling, and looks good. Because yeah, it's empty, so it doesn't report anything. So we're gonna create another test case, and we're gonna say it does report update to main entity. So let's do this update. Let's say source item, and we're gonna update here quantity, let's say to 20, and the status, yeah, let's leave it 1, right? And then as soon as we ask to report it, it should record here a fake persistence update item, so SKU10 source 1 with the value of 20 and status of 1. So it should record only this one. Let's see. That should fail, of course. Okay, and great. There's no update happened, so that's what we're gonna verify there. So what I can do, I can take this self modifications as a reference, and I'm gonna check that it's source item modification, source item, okay, and here I'm gonna specify that it was updated. Otherwise we basically don't do anything. Okay, what's happening here? Oh, okay, I can just use something like that. I don't need to even worry about that one. So storage, source items, and I'm gonna specify self SKU self source. Okay, and then I'm gonna specify self quantity, I hope it's gonna copy it. We'll see. And then we're gonna specify self status. So let's check how it goes. Does it pass now? No, it shouldn't pass because I didn't specify this thing yet. Okay, so it compiles, it's good, but it doesn't record a modification because I didn't specify that modification should be a source item. So what I need to do here, I need here to set modifications to source item modification equal to source item. So now it should basically report it properly and it should turn my test green. That's great. So let's go back to the test case and let's create another one. Okay, let's say it does report update to aggregate when quantity is reserved. So this is gonna be a simple one. Source item reserve quantity of, let's say, 10. And we're gonna report an update. Okay, let's see. We just pass here storage. Okay, here we have source item, reserve quantity, source item report. And what we expect here, we expect that an aggregate update is going to be reported with 0 shipped quantity and reserved quantity of 10. That's basically what should happen when we reserve some quantity on it. And it fails because, yeah, it doesn't modify anything. So what we need to do here we just need to specify self modifications, source item modification. I feel like I can do it even better, right? Yeah, I already see how I can improve it. So I can go on and here, instead of like assigning a value, I can actually mutate it. So what I can do, I can create an implementation for this source item modification, and I can create a function called which one I'm gonna update. I'm gonna update first with item, and it's gonna be mutable self, of course, and you're just gonna do value to source item modification source item, and then we're gonna specify aggregate and it's also gonna set value self source item modification to source item aggregate, because I just want to call this method and be done with it. So here then in update, which is gonna invoke this item method, right? So it should just mutate it. So let's run a test just to check. Is it working? It doesn't work on aggregate because I didn't call a method there. So self modifications aggregate. Okay. And that's because this one doesn't contain yet source item modification. It should be source item aggregate here. And it should be source item modification, source item aggregate, source item aggregate, and here self SKU, self source, and self quantity, not quantity, sorry, shipped quantity, and self reserved quantity. Right, so that one should do it. Okay, now we have actually a passing test, so we can create another one, and this time we specify that it does report both updates to aggregate and quantity and source item. So what we're gonna do, oh wait a second, I didn't create enough test cases for different ones. So it does report update to aggregate when reservation is cancelled, so this is important. So here we are. Let's say we have a source item with reserved quantity of, let's say, 20, and now instead of reserving quantity additionally, we're actually gonna cancel reserved quantity of, let's say, 5, and we expect that the remaining reserved quantity should stay in value of 5 for this specific item. So let's see. Yeah, it doesn't pass because I didn't specify here that self modifications aggregate should be called. Let's see, does it pass now? Yeah, now it's green. So let's also do the same for ship quantity, because this is important as well. It reports. Oh no, it does report. Probably I can just remove does here. Yeah, this is naming issues. So it reports update to aggregate. It reports update to aggregate when quantity is shipped. Okay, so for the ship one we will have some additional info here with shipped quantity, and the shipped quantity is gonna be, let's say, 10, right? And now we're gonna do ship of quantity, let's say 3. So we're gonna ship 3 items, so it should migrate 3 items from the reservations into quantity shipped. So it should update the shipped quantity to 13, and it should deduct 3 from reserved quantity of 20, so it should be 17 here. Let's see, does it work? No, because I didn't specify here about aggregate self modifications. Aggregate should be fine. Great. So there's a couple of things left, and now it's gonna also report update to both aggregate and source. Okay, and what we're gonna do here, we're gonna basically copy paste stuff here, and we're gonna execute a couple of operations. We're gonna execute update with the quantity of 400 and the status of 1. Then we're gonna ship some stuff. We're gonna reserve quantity. Let's say we're gonna reserve 10 items, and then we're also gonna cancel as well. Cancel reserved quantity of, let's say, 5, right? So ship, reserve, and cancel. I think that's only operations actually do with mutable objects. Yeah, we can actually move this update method here. It should be closer to other mutations. Okay, ship, reserve, cancel. It just should go and modify a bunch of stuff there. So given all of this stuff, it should generate at least 2 fake updates to SKU 10 with source on 1 with value of actual quantity of 400 and the status of 1. Then the aggregate itself, here we need actually to calculate. So we had reserved quantity of 20, then it became 17, then we added another 10, so it should be 27, and then we cancelled 5, so it should be 22. Then the shipped quantity, basically it just was increased by 3, and then we reserve. Now reserve doesn't affect here, so it should be just, I think 16, something like that. Oh no, it should be actually 13 because we just increased it by 3. Let's run a test. Okay, so we see that there's only item aggregate right now is reported, and this is the problem caused by yeah, that we don't handle both updates properly. So I probably have to add something to the report function itself, right? So we need to also create this source item modification both, and here we need basically execute both of the operations. Okay. And otherwise we just don't do anything. Let's see. Does it pass? I think it's not, because I don't set both to anything. So now we need to go into this modifications implementation, and here we need to set the specific cases. So match self, source item modification known, so we're actually gonna do something like that. So we're gonna do reference and set stuff like that. So when it's known, we set it to source item. In any other case, if it's not known, we're just gonna set to both. So the same should happen here, but here we're just gonna say source item aggregate. And let's see if it works. Okay, it works, but the data match actually is different. Okay, and why it is? Oh yeah, because I didn't consider one thing. When we execute an update, we actually set the shipped quantity to 0, so there's no 10, there's actually 3, and this is my mistake in the test itself. So should be great now. Yeah, all the tests are green now. Now another test should be done, and this test is gonna test that it reports modifications only once. So I want actually to reset the modification state as soon as I reported them. And for this one, yeah, I'm just gonna do the same thing. Maybe I just copy something simpler like this one, the one with the aggregate, and we just specify this one here, and yeah, this one should be reported like that, and this item update too needs to be reported like that. Now it should pass, right? But now I'm gonna specify report 2 times. So I'm just gonna call it 2 times. In a second call, I expect that there should be only 2 items, but the test actually fails because I don't add any precautions to make sure, you know, like it doesn't happen twice. So what I need to do, I need to create a new method on this modifications, and I need to specify a method called take, and this take method is gonna take a value of the modification itself, it self, and it's gonna return back a new instance of self. And what's gonna happen there, we're just gonna use this std memory replace function of self, and we're gonna replace it with source item modification none. So this is basically what we're gonna do. So we're just gonna replace it with a value. What we also can do, we can use just a take method like that, but then it means that we'll need to implement the default for source item modification, because the default indicates what's the default state the variable should be. So it takes the current value and replaces it with the default, and we basically can just say, hey, the default one is known. And this one I think also can be replaced with the default call here, instead of, you know, like having that known variation itself. So let's see if it's gonna work. Great, all the tests are green, and yeah, I think it's good progress. Good progress for today. In general, I just created some kind of a way to track the source item modifications, so then I can just report those modifications back to the service, and yeah, just do a bunch of stuff over there. I like it. Okay, here we go. So now what I think about, like, after I did this one, I can actually create some kind of every let's say 100 milliseconds I'm gonna write something into the database based on the current state. So now with this kind of tracker, I can achieve kind of good way to capture those changes. Okay, thanks everyone for joining the stream. That's all for today. I'm gonna do another stream tomorrow and I'm gonna give you update. I'm gonna still continue working on it later today, but yeah, now I can do it on stream. So thanks everyone for joining. Till the next time.